Okay, let's dive in. We all sort of know music hits us, right? Changes how we feel, rallies people, calms things down.
It's universal.
But imagine taking that feeling, that power, and making it actual medicine, like prescribed systematic treatment built into hospitals.
That's exactly where we're going today. We're looking at the Seljuk and Ottoman periods and how they used music therapy in these darüşşifas, these hospitals.
Right, these special hospitals.
Yeah, and not just as some nice extra, but as a core treatment, especially for mental health. It was pretty revolutionary.
So our mission here is really to give you that deep dive, that shortcut, so you're, properly informed about this amazing piece of medical history.
It's fascinating how architecture, culture, science, it all came together back then.
Creating this really holistic, kind of compassionate way of treating people centuries ago.
And I think a key thing to get right off the bat is this wasn't alternative medicine for them. Not like we might think of it today. No, the sources are clear. Music therapy was fully part of their traditional medicine. It had systems, methods. It was clinical.
Wow. Clinical. Okay. But I mean, using music for healing isn't totally new, globally speaking, right? There's a long history.
Oh, absolutely. It goes way back. Think about early shamans using rhythm, music, dance. That wasn't just performance.
It was for healing, like inducing states.
It's exactly, creating a sort of hypnotic state for healing.
Yeah.
And you see echoes in ancient Egypt using music for strength, or Greece and Rome using it to soothe distress.
But maybe less systematic, less targeted.
Generally, yes. The move towards making it a defined sort of scientific discipline, that's much more recent in the Western context.
Right. You see that picking up, in the 19th century with psychiatry, that whole biopsychosocial view of people.
That's a big part of it, seeing the whole person, mind, body, social context. But the real catalyst in modern times was probably World War II.
How so?
Well, they started using music pretty systematically in hospitals for injured soldiers with shell shock.
Ah, okay. Practical need driving it forward.
Precisely. And that experience helped formalize it. Yeah. So by, 1997, you get the modern definition, music therapy as a systematic scientific field, using music for specific physical, psychological, social, mental needs.
Fitting within traditional medicine. Okay. But here's the contrast that really jumps out. While the West is formalizing this in the mid-20th century, you're saying the Seljuks and Ottomans were doing this consciously, regularly, centuries earlier.
That's the core point. And it's stark when you compare it to medieval Europe, where mental illness was often seen very differently.
Yeah, often associated with possession, leading to pretty horrific treatment like torture.
Whereas the Turks, in this period, viewed people with mental illness as patients. People needing care, dignity, and a path to recovery.
That's a fundamental difference in approach.
Huge. And because of that focus on the patient, on recovery, they really became the first to apply music therapy in this consistent, conscious, structured way. They were pioneers, leaders, really.
Okay, so how did they actually do it? It wasn't just putting on some relaxing tunes, clearly. What was the thinking behind it?
Well, it had deep intellectual roots. They drew heavily from major Arab and Persian scholars. Figures like Farabi and especially Ibn Sina were foundational.
Right, Ibn Sina, Atıcı.
Exactly. And they had this incredible requirement for doctors. Farabi and another physician, Tabib Shuri, they basically said
What?
that a doctor who didn't understand music couldn't really understand medicine or even diagnose properly.
Wow. Okay, hold on. That's a huge claim. Understand music like theory, performance.
The implication is a deep understanding theory, its effects. It speaks volumes about how they viewed the interconnectedness of things, the arts and sciences.
But practically, how could a doctor manage that? Diagnosing fevers and knowing musical modes?
It shows the high value placed on this knowledge. And look at Ibn Sina's major work, Kitabu Shifa.
The Book of Healing.
Right. He spends real time arguing that music therapy is one of the most effective treatments. He saw its power in boosting mental strength, giving courage.
Making the environment pleasant, connecting with loved ones, it sounds very holistic.
It was. Therapy for the whole person, soul included.
Okay, this is where it gets really specific and, frankly, amazing, the diagnosis part. How did they figure out which music to use?
This is the clever bit. They believed the human pulse, the nabuz, was directly related to the rhythmic modes of music, the makam.
The makam. Those are the complex scales or moods in Turkish music, right? Each with its own feel.
Exactly. Each associated with specific moods, times of day, even physiological effects. So the physician's job was intensely personal.
How? What did they do?
They'd listen. They'd listen to different melodies, different makam, while carefully monitoring the patient's pulse.
Watching for changes, like how it rises or falls.
Yes, or its width, its rhythm. They were trying to find the makeup that resonated best, or perhaps challenged the patient's specific pulse state.
So it's like a musical diagnostic, finding the right frequency almost.
You could think of it that way. Using sound as a diagnostic tool to find the mode that could help normalize or rebalance the patient's state. Certain makeup were known to help with melancholy, others may be fever.
A tailored acoustic prescription. That's incredible.
It really is.
And they even considered the environment, right? You mentioned Abbas Vism linking it to seasons.
Right. He suggested using warm-sounding melodies when it was cold and cool melodies when it was warm. Especially useful, he thought, when drugs weren't working.
That holistic view again.
It continued. Later on, Gevher Hafez Hassan bin Ahmet in the 19th century, he noted it was particularly good for patients who were really withdrawn, sluggish, not engaging.
People who needed that strong sensory input to kind of wake them up.
That seems to be the idea. They needed that intervention.
So who played this music? Were there dedicated musicians in the hospitals?
Oh, yes. These darüşşifas had organized musical ensembles. Sometimes it might have been parts of the Medresesi Hakkani.
Those are the groups with the really powerful instruments, right? Like the zurna, the big drums, davul, kettle drums, kus. Almost military sounding.
Yeah, very powerful. Maybe used for specific stimulating effects. But other times they had smaller, specialized music-y teams using different instruments.
Softer sounds, maybe?
More melodic?
Likely. It shows they adapted the sound to the therapeutic need, which leads us straight into the architecture itself.
Because the buildings weren't just containers, they were part of the therapy, engineered for sound.
Exactly. Let's look at the Seljuks first. A great early example is the Nureddin Hospital in Damascus from 1154.
What was special about it?
It's famous for having a dedicated section just for mental patients, and music therapy was definitely practiced there. Evliya Çelebi.
The famous traveler.
Right. He wrote about seeing it still happening there centuries later in the 1600s, so it lasted. Wow. But the buildings themselves started being designed for music therapy.
Yes. Look at the Kayseri Gevher Nesibe complex from 1206. It's by Maran, the section for the mentally ill, had 18 rooms specifically laid out to be acoustically suitable.
Architecturally designed for sound.
And then you get the Atıcı Darüşşifası from 1308.
Yeah.
This one is just spectacular.
Why? What did they do there?
It's believed to be the world's first place where they treated mental illness using both music and the sound of water.
The sound of water. You mean like fountains?
Yes, integrated into the design. The idea, the theory, was that sound vibrations from the music and the flowing water could directly affect the brain, soothing, maybe reorganizing.
They were literally shaping the sound environment for healing. That requires a really sophisticated understanding.
It really does, almost like modern psychoacoustics.
Okay, moving into the Ottoman era, things got bigger, right? The Fatih Darüşşifası in Istanbul around 1470.
Huge, part of the massive Fatih Kuliyesi complex, probably the largest hospital in Europe, than 70 rooms, 200 beds, and yes, musical concerts were just part of the routine, alongside medicines.
But the one that always comes up for acoustics is Edirne, right? The Bayezid II Darüşşifası from 1488.
Edirne, yes. That building is considered a masterpiece of acoustic design for therapy. The layout, the materials, everything was optimized.
And Evliya Çelebi wrote about that one too.
He did. He described a 10-person ensemble, 3 singers, 7 instrumentalists playing in the central hall 3 times a week.
10 people. What kind of instruments did they use there? Was it the loud mater style?
No, this was different. More refined classical sounds, instruments like the keman, which is like a Turkish violin, the santur, a hammered dulcimer,
Okay.
the oud, a lute, and the ney, the iconic reed flute. Beautiful introspective sounds, suited for healing and peace.
A completely different vibe. And Edirne went even further, didn't it? It wasn't just sound.
Exactly. They brought in fragrances. They planted things like hyacinth, basil, tulips, carnations.
Aromatherapy, basically, as part of the treatment.
That's what it looks like, a truly multisensory approach, engaging sight, sound, and smell for recovery. It's incredibly holistic.
And even later, the Süleymaniye complex, designed by the master architect Mimar Sinan.
In 1557, yes, its darüşşifa had its entire basement level architecturally sound, dedicated specifically to mental health care.
So looking back at all this, the pulse diagnosis, the make-em, the water sounds, the fragrances, the purpose-built architecture, what's the big picture?
I think the big picture is that the sheer systematic importance the Seljuks and Ottomans gave this, building these specialized hospitals, it made them absolute pioneers. leaders in how psychiatry and hospital management evolved globally.
They weren't just early, they were advanced.
Centuries ahead in adopting what we'd now call a biopsychosocial model. They lived it.
So the key takeaway for you listening is just how deep this commitment ran. This wasn't a hobby or a nice idea.
No, it was rigorous. It demanded multidisciplinary skill from physicians linking physiology, the pulse, to deep cultural knowledge, the make-em.
While also designing the environment itself, acoustics, water, smells as part of the cure.
It really shows this incredible integration of medicine, philosophy, art, engineering, all focused on humane recovery.
Okay, so here's something to think about after we wrap up. If these cultures, hundreds of years ago, were building facilities specifically designed with acoustics, water features, even aromatherapy as essential medical tools, what core elements of humane, personalized, multisensory care might our modern, super high-tech, often quite sterile hospitals be missing today? Something to mull over.